before the mountains rose, before the seas spread wide, before even the stars dared to shine in the dark, there was only silence. The ancient Greeks did not imagine a beginning filled with order or light. Instead, they spoke of chaos, a vast, formless void, a yawning gap where nothing and everything stirred. From this emptiness would come the first breaths of creation, the first shapes of gods, and the seeds of destiny itself. But how could life and divinity emerge from nothingness? How could the Greeks find meaning in the shadows before the world began? Welcome, dear listener, to Whispered Empires, where we wander through the myths, mysteries, and hidden histories of the ancient world, softly told to carry you into a dream of the past. Tonight, we begin a long journey, a tale that stretches from the first spark of existence to the twilight of the gods themselves. This is the complete story of the Greek gods, starting with chaos and the primordial forces. If you find yourself curious about the forgotten stories of creation, or if you love drifting to sleep with the voices of ancient myths in your ear, then make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. By joining us, you'll never miss a step of this journey through the realms of gods, heroes, and mysteries carved in time. So close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the silence of the void surround you. For in that silence, a story begins, the story of how everything came to be. In the beginning, there was nothing, not the kind of nothing you sense when you close your eyes in a darkened room, not the silence of midnight, when even the birds and the winds grow still. Those are human nothings, familiar, comforting, with edges we can define. The nothing the Greeks spoke of was greater, deeper, stranger. They called it chaos. Chaos was not a god. It had no throne, no temple, no face that could be carved into marble. Chaos was a chasm, a yawning gap, a hollow so wide and endless that the human mind could not measure it. Imagine leaning over the lip of a cliff so vast that you cannot see the bottom. Imagine a horizon that never arrives, a silence that does not break. That is chaos. It was not evil. It was not kind. It was not even neutral, for those are human words. Chaos simply was. The Greeks believed that this was the first state of existence, a womb of emptiness. Within it rested the possibility of all things, the seeds of earth and sky, of night and day, of gods and mortals. Nothing had form, and yet within that formlessness lay the potential for everything. Pause for a moment and place yourself there. Picture yourself drifting in the void. There is no up, no down. No sun warms your skin. No ground waits beneath your feet. There is no air to breathe, no echo to answer you. If you reached out your hand, you would touch only more nothingness. Could you bear such a silence? Could you surrender to it? Or would some restless spark inside you, like chaos itself, long to give birth to something new? From this boundless emptiness, the Greeks said, the first presences began to stir. Slowly, as if dreaming, the outlines of existence appeared. Gaia, the earth, vast and eternal, opened her arms. Nyx, the night, spread her cloak of shadow. Erebus, the deep darkness, filled the gaps. And Hemera, the day, would soon rise to chase her mother across the heavens. Later still would come Uranus, the sky, crowning Gaia with his endless vault. But before Gaia, before Nyx, before even the first breath of day, there was only chaos. Why begin here with emptiness? Perhaps because the Greeks knew what we know in quiet moments, that silence is never truly empty. When the world grows still, our thoughts awaken. When we close our eyes, shapes stir behind our eyelids. Out of silence, stories are born. Out of nothing, the mind creates worlds. And so, the Greeks imagined that out of chaos, the universe itself was born. Even in the oldest fragments of Greek poetry, chaos is described not as disorder but as space. Hesiod, in his Theogony, writes, "At first there was chaos, and then broad-bosomed Gaia. For him, the void was the stage and earth the first actor to step forward." It is haunting to picture the cosmos as a vast, eternal theater, with a curtain of silence, waiting. And then, out of that silence, a figure emerges. That was Gaia. That was night. That was the beginning. The Greeks were not alone in imagining a beginning like this. The Babylonians told of Apsu and Tiamat, waters mingling without form before the gods were born. The Egyptians spoke of Nun, the dark eternal flood from which the first mound of earth rose. The Norse imagined Ginnungagap, the yawning gap between fire and ice, where the first giants stirred. Again and again, cultures imagined beginnings not with fullness, but with void. Why? Perhaps because when humans looked back and tried to imagine the first dawn, they found themselves staring not at light, but at shadow. Not at sound, but at silence. To imagine creation, we begin by imagining its opposite. And so, the Greeks said, before all gods and all worlds, there was chaos. Even the word itself is revealing. Today, when we say chaos, we mean disorder, confusion, turmoil. But the Greek word meant something else. It meant gap or chasm, an opening, a space. Think of a mouth open wide. Think of a cavern's dark throat. That was chaos. An eternal opening, waiting to be filled. And filled it was. From chaos emerged the first great forces. They were not yet Olympian gods with thrones and thunderbolts. They were older, more abstract, more elemental. They were the raw conditions of reality itself. Gaia, earth. Nyx, night. Erebus, darkness. Hemera, day. Uranus, sky. They were less like people and more like inevitabilities. And yet, the Greeks gave them names, gave them faces, gave them life. Earth became a mother. Night became a goddess. Sky became a father. By shaping the void into stories, the Greeks gave form to the formless and meaning to the meaningless. Have you ever gazed into a night sky far from the lights of a city? The stars glimmer faintly, but between them stretches a blackness so vast that it feels endless. That blackness is not silence. It hums in your chest, pulls at your eyes. To the Greeks, that blackness was chaos. Still present, still breathing, always there. Chaos was not simply the past. It was the backdrop, the canvas, the eternal stage on which all things exist. Without chaos, there would be no room for creation. Without emptiness, there could be no fullness. Without silence, there could be no song. The Greeks both feared and revered it. For what is more terrifying than the thought of nothing? And what is more awe-inspiring than the thought that from nothing, everything came? They must have wondered, how can silence give rise to music? How can void give rise to gods? Perhaps because chaos was never truly empty. Perhaps it was always carrying the weight of possibility. And so, the story begins not with thunder or fire, not with battles or kings, but with a stillness that birthed a whisper that became a breath that became a world. From chaos came earth and sky, night and day, darkness and light. From chaos came death and sleep, love and strife. From chaos came the gods. From chaos came mortals. From chaos came us. The void is never far away. When you close your eyes and drift toward sleep, you return to it. You float again in its silence. You feel its vastness pressing softly against you. And in that silence, stories wait to be told. For the Greeks, everything began here, not in brilliance but in mystery, not in a blaze of glory, but in a silence so deep it could not be measured. Chaos was not the end of the tale. It was only the beginning, the first breath before the song of the cosmos began. From the endless void of chaos, the first great shape began to stir. She was not a flicker of light, nor a breath of air, nor a fleeting thought. She was Gaia, the earth itself. Vast, steady, and eternal, Gaia rose out of the silence as the foundation of all that was to come. Gaia was more than soil or stone. She was the living ground, the fertile womb that would bear mountains and rivers, forests and fields, gods and mortals alike. The Greeks imagined her not as a figure apart from the earth, but as the earth itself. Every hill her shoulder, every valley her fold, every plain her outstretched hand. In the hush after chaos, Gaia gave shape to existence. Where there had been only emptiness, now there was form. Where there had been only silence, now there was substance. The Greeks called her broad-bosomed Gaia, for she was the nourisher, the endless mother who could carry the weight of creation upon her breast. Gaia was the first home, the first ground beneath the feet of gods. From her body, mountains rose like ribs, forests spread like veins, rivers flowed like lifeblood. She was not simply the surface of the world, but its essence. Stability, nourishment, endurance. Imagine for a moment the awe of the Greeks as they looked at the earth beneath them. The fields that gave them grain, the stone that built their homes, the mountains that shielded them, all of it to them was Gaia. She was not distant. She was immediate, present in every step, every harvest, every breath of wind that swept across her plains. Without Gaia, life would have no place to stand. She was the ground itself, the stage upon which all stories would unfold. But Gaia was not only earth. She was motherhood itself. In time, she would bring forth gods, titans, and creatures of immense power. She would be praised, feared, and sometimes defied. Yet in this earliest moment, before children stirred in her womb, Gaia was the silent promise of fertility. The Greeks saw her as the eternal parent. Unlike chaos, which was potential without form, Gaia was potential realized. Chaos was the canvas, but Gaia was the first painting upon it. She was the one who transformed emptiness into fullness, silence into song, nothingness into life. Even the great Olympian gods, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, could trace their ancestry back to Gaia. She was the beginning of every dynasty, the root of every story. Yet Gaia was incomplete, for though she stretched wide and deep, she longed for something to crown her, to cover her endless plains. She yearned for the vastness above her, for a companion to balance her weight. From this longing came Uranus, the sky. The Greeks imagined Uranus as Gaia's equal and opposite. He was the dome that arched over her, glittering with stars, endless in his expanse. When Gaia looked upward, she met Uranus, and together they formed the first great union of earth and sky. This union would soon bring forth children, some fair and strong, others strange and terrifying. But in this moment, what mattered most was balance. Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, became the first cosmic pair, the first dynasty of creation. To the Greeks, Gaia was not just a myth, but a presence in their daily lives. She was worshipped as a goddess of prophecy, for the earth itself was thought to speak truths through rumblings, signs, and sacred places. At Delphi, long before Apollo claimed the oracle, it was Gaia who was said to speak. Every harvest owed itself to her. Every stone laid in a temple was part of her body. Every grave dug into the soil returned the dead to her embrace. She was at once the giver of life and the receiver of death, nourishing the living and sheltering the departed. Gaia was eternal, both nurturing and unyielding. The Greeks respected her, for to disrespect the earth was to risk her wrath. Earthquakes, famine, barrenness, all were seen as signs of her displeasure. The poets called her everlasting seat of the immortals, for even gods needed the earth beneath them. Hesiod praised her as the firm foundation of all things. In every Greek story, however far the gods soared or however deep mortals fell, Gaia was always beneath them, supporting, holding, bearing their weight. To imagine Gaia is to imagine the world itself as alive. Every mountain has breath, every river has pulse, every tree has voice. To the Greeks, the earth was not silent but endlessly speaking. Through the rustle of leaves, the crash of waves, the shifting of soil, Gaia was not only mother, but storyteller. Yet even in her greatness, Gaia carried the seeds of conflict. For when Uranus, the sky, joined her, their union would not be a gentle one. Uranus would prove harsh, and the children they bore would bring both wonder and terror. Giants, cyclopes, titans, all of them were carried in Gaia's womb. The Greeks believed that creation was never pure harmony. Out of Gaia's fertility came not only beauty but also strife. She was the mother of abundance and the mother of rebellion. Already, in her vastness, the story of conflict was taking shape. Even as the myths unfold, even as her children rise and fall, even as gods war and mortals pray, Gaia remains. She is the constant. She cannot be dethroned, for she is not a ruler but the throne itself. She cannot be silenced, for she is the ground of all voices. She cannot be destroyed, for even in destruction, earth remains. Gaia was, is, and will always be. Have you ever knelt in a field, pressed your hand into the soil, and felt its coolness against your palm? Have you wondered how many lives have sprung from that soil? How many seeds, how many bodies, how many civilizations? That soil is Gaia. She has carried every generation, and she will carry the next. For the Greeks, this was not metaphor but reality. To stand on the earth was to stand on the body of a goddess. To plant seeds was to trust in her generosity. To dig a grave was to return a loved one to her keeping. In this way, Gaia was the most intimate of deities. She was not distant, not unreachable. She was always beneath your feet. If chaos was emptiness, Gaia was its answer. If chaos was potential, Gaia was realization. She was the first to awaken from the silence, the first to give form to the formless. From her would come not only the sky but the sea, the mountains, and the underworld. From her would come the titans, the gods, and even humankind. She was the thread that bound every story together, the womb from which every destiny was born. Though centuries have passed, the story of Gaia still speaks to us. Every time we walk in a forest or climb a mountain or feel the earth tremble beneath us, we echo the Greeks' belief that the ground is alive, that the world itself has a spirit. We still call her Mother Earth. We still see her as both giver and taker, gentle and fierce. In this, the Greek myth endures, reminding us that the earth is not mere matter but a living presence. Thus, out of chaos rose Gaia, the eternal earth, the foundation of all. She was the first presence, the first mother, the first ground beneath the feet of gods and mortals. She carried within her the promise of abundance and the certainty of conflict. She was nourishment, prophecy, power, and destiny. With Gaia, the cosmos had taken its first true form. The silence of chaos was broken. The void was no longer empty. The world had begun. After Gaia, the great Earth had taken her place in the cosmos. Another presence rose from the depths of chaos. She was older than gods, older than mortals, older even than the stars that would one day shine in the heavens. She was Nyx, the night. Nyx was not merely the absence of daylight. She was night personified. A goddess draped in shadow, mysterious, powerful, and eternal. The Greeks imagined her as a vast figure cloaked in black, moving silently across the sky, bringing rest to the world. But within her quiet beauty lay an awe so deep that even Zeus, king of the Olympians, respected her power. For the Greeks, night was not a void but a presence, and that presence had a name, Nyx. Night was a time of rest, but also of fear. By day, the world was visible, knowable, and safe. By night, danger stirred. Creatures moved unseen. Dreams rose unbidden. Shadows swallowed certainty. To the Greeks, this mystery was Nyx's domain. She was not cruel, but she was not gentle either. She was inevitable. Every day, Hemera, the day, would chase her away, only for Nyx to return again with the fall of dusk. In this endless cycle, the Greeks saw balance. The world could not endure eternal light, nor eternal dark. Night and day, mother and daughter, took turns, weaving time itself. Have you ever felt how different the world seems at night? The same road you walk in daylight becomes strange, unfamiliar, charged with secrets. That feeling is Nyx, the goddess present in every shadow. But Nyx was more than the night sky. She was a mother, one of the most fertile of the primordial beings. From her came children both wondrous and terrible. Alone, without partner, she bore them from her own essence. Among her children were Hypnos, Sleep, who draped mortals in rest, and his twin, Thanatos, Death, who carried souls gently into silence. From Nyx also came the Moirai, the Fates, who spun, measured, and cut the thread of every life. She gave birth to Erebus, Strife, whose quarrels sowed war, and to Nemesis, Retribution, who punished arrogance. All of these forces, sleep, death, fate, strife, punishment, were born of night, and perhaps that is why the Greeks gave them to Nyx. For in the dark we rest. In the dark we die. In the dark, destinies unfold and conflicts brew. Night holds all of these in her cloak. The twins of Nyx, Hypnos, and Thanatos were among her most famous children. To the Greeks, sleep and death were siblings, alike in form. Both closed the eyes, both brought silence, both carried mortals into worlds beyond waking. But one was gentle and temporary, and the other eternal. Imagine lying down at night, drifting into dreams. That surrender is Hypnos. Imagine closing your eyes for the last time, releasing all burdens. That final silence is Thanatos. Both are Nyx's gifts, and both remind us that in her darkness lies not only fear, but also peace. Do you think the Greeks, as they lay beneath the stars, wondered whether sleep was a rehearsal for death? Whether every night, in Nyx's embrace, they tasted a little of eternity? Among Nyx's most awe-inspiring children were the Moirai, the Fates. These three sisters held power even over gods. Clotho spun the thread of life, Lachesis measured it, and Atropos cut it when the time came. To the Greeks, destiny was not random, nor was it under Zeus' thunderbolt. It was Nyx's daughters who decided every birth and every death. And though the Olympians reigned in heaven, none could escape the thread the Fates wove. It is telling that the Greeks placed the Fates as children of night. For is it not in darkness that the future hides? Is it not in shadow that destiny waits, unseen, until it steps into the light? From Nyx also came Erebus, Strife, the goddess of discord. She was the spark of quarrels, the whisper behind jealousies, the seed of wars. Wherever humans fought, wherever gods bickered, her shadow lurked. It was Erebus who would one day cast the golden apple that sparked the Trojan War. It was Erebus who delighted in watching harmony unravel. Yet, like night itself, she was not wholly evil. For without strife, there can be no struggle, and without struggle, no growth. The Greeks saw in Erebus the truth that darkness carries both destruction and creation, both ruin and renewal. Nyx's power was so immense that even Zeus, ruler of Olympus, feared her. In Homer's Iliad, there is a tale where Hera seeks to harm Heracles, son of Zeus. But when she considers acting against him at night, she hesitates, for Nyx protects her children. Even Zeus, with all his thunder, dares not provoke her wrath. This is extraordinary. The king of the gods bowed his head before night, perhaps because Zeus knew what we all know. No matter how powerful the day, night always returns. The Greeks were not alone in honoring night. In Egypt, Nut, the goddess of the sky, swallowed the sun each evening and gave birth to it each dawn. In Mesopotamia, night was personified in the goddess Namu, the primeval sea of darkness. The Hindus spoke of Ratri, night herself, who brings both fear and rest. Every culture, it seems, felt the weight of night as more than emptiness. Night was alive, eternal, inevitable. For the Greeks, she was Nyx, and she carried the mysteries of existence in her veil. Yet Nyx was not only feared, she was also beloved, for in her darkness came rest. In her silence, mortals found peace. Farmers slept after their labor, sailors rested after their voyages, children dreamed in her embrace. Night was also a time for intimacy, for whispers, for songs, for stories told around the fire. Under Nyx's cloak, secrets were shared, loves were confessed, and prayers were whispered. She was the keeper of confidences, the goddess who saw all and revealed nothing. Have you ever noticed how words spoken at night feel heavier, more truthful, than those spoken by day? That is Nyx's doing. Another gift of Nyx was dreams. From her children came visions both joyful and frightening. Some dreams carried prophecies, others carried fears. The Greeks believed dreams were doorways, opened by night, through which messages could slip. It is fitting that dreams belong to Nyx, for in her shadows the mind is free to wander. In her silence, imagination awakens. Every vision that stirs in the dark owes itself to her. Night and day, mother and daughter, circled endlessly. Hemera, the bright day, would drive her mother away each morning. But every evening, Nyx returned, sweeping the horizon with her black veil. Their cycle was eternal, their balance unbreakable. The Greeks saw in this rhythm the very heartbeat of the world. Night yields to day, day yields to night, and so time itself moves forward. Without Nyx, there could be no dawn. Without her shadow, there could be no light. Thus, Nyx endures, the eternal night, the queen of mystery. She is both feared and beloved, both gentle and terrifying. She is the mother of sleep and of death, of fate and of strife. She is the presence that even gods respect, the veil that wraps the world each evening. When you close your eyes tonight, remember Nyx, for the darkness you enter is her cloak. The silence you feel is her gift, and the dreams that carry you into other worlds are her whispers. Nyx is not the end. She is the pause between beginnings. She is the mystery that makes all light more precious, the silence that makes all song more sweet. She was there at the dawn of creation, and she will be there when the last star fades. From chaos, alongside Gaia the earth and Nyx the night, came other presences, less well known but no less important. These were Erebus and Hemera. Erebus was the embodiment of darkness, not the soft veil of night, but the thick shadow that gathers in the deepest places. Hemera was the goddess of daylight, the bright counterpoint who followed night and banished shadow. Together, they embodied contrast, the endless dance of light and dark, presence and absence. For the Greeks, they explained a simple but profound truth. The world is woven from opposites. Darkness is not complete without day. Day has no meaning without shadow. Erebus was the personification of the darkness that lies between. Not the cosmic night of Nyx, vast and eternal, but the shadow of caves, the dimness of twilight, the obscurity of the underworld. He was the gloom that clings where light cannot reach. His name meant deep darkness or gloom, and he was said to dwell in the underworld, wrapping the paths of the dead. When souls journeyed downward, they passed first through Erebus. He was the threshold, the place between life and death, light and shadow. Have you ever walked through a cave, torch flickering, and felt the weight of the darkness pressing in? That was Erebus. His presence was not malevolent, but it was heavy. He reminded mortals that shadow is always near, even at the edges of day. If Erebus was shadow, Hemera was his opposite, the goddess of daylight. She was the child of Nyx and Erebus, and each morning she would rise to sweep away her mother's veil. Hemera was not the sun itself, that role belonged later to Helios and Apollo, but she was the very quality of daylight, the brightness that made the world visible. When Hemera came, color returned, shapes sharpened, and life stirred. The Greeks saw Hemera as inevitable as Nyx. Every dawn she would chase her mother, and every dusk Nyx would return to claim the sky. Together they explained the rhythm of time, light yielding to dark, dark yielding to light. In the Greek imagination, Nyx and Hemera shared a single home. Each day, as Hemera stepped out, Nyx returned, and as Nyx spread her cloak, Hemera withdrew. They never met, for light and dark cannot exist together. This cycle was not just practical but sacred. It explained the heartbeat of the cosmos, the endless exchange of opposites. Without darkness, the day would burn without pause. Without day, the night would swallow endlessly. Only in balance could life exist. The Greeks found comfort in this rhythm. It meant the world was ordered, reliable, and eternal. Each night, however long, would end in dawn. Each day, however bright, would end in night. Beyond his role in the cycle, Erebus was deeply tied to the underworld. Ancient poets described the dead as traveling through Erebus to reach Hades. He was the borderland, the shadowy passage that souls must cross. Some imagined Erebus as the darkness that wrapped the rivers of the underworld, the Styx, the Acheron, the Lethe. Others saw him as the misty air of the realm of the dead. He was not punishment, nor reward. He was the threshold itself. To the living, Erebus was a reminder that shadow waits beyond every flame. To the dead, he was the gatekeeper of silence. If Erebus belonged to the dead, Hemera belonged to the living. Each morning she brought activity back to the world. Farmers went to their fields, merchants to their markets, sailors to their ships. Without Hemera, life could not be lived, for mortals needed light to work, travel, and thrive. In this way, Hemera was not only daylight but also renewal. Each dawn was a rebirth, a fresh chance, a reassurance that the world was still in order. She was the hope that followed every shadow. Have you ever watched the horizon lighten after a long night? That quiet transformation is Hemera, the goddess arriving. Together, Erebus and Hemera embodied balance. Darkness and light, shadow and brightness, underworld and upper world. They were not rivals but complements, each giving the other meaning. The Greeks saw this balance reflected in their lives. Without labor, there could be no rest. Without struggle, no peace. Without death, no value to life. Erebus and Hemera taught that opposites are not enemies but partners, forever entwined. The Greeks were not alone in pairing darkness and light. In Egypt, the god Ra sailed his boat each night through the darkness of the underworld, rising again at dawn. In Mesopotamia, the goddess of dawn, Ushas, chased away the shadows. In Hindu tradition, Ratri, night, and Ushas, dawn, were sisters endlessly circling. The Greeks placed this eternal rhythm into the figures of Nyx, Erebus, and Hemera. Their cycle was not just cosmic but personal. Every Greek, every day, lived within it. For mortals, Erebus and Hemera were not distant deities. They were felt each day. The fear of shadowed places, the relief of morning light, these were encounters with the divine. When Greeks spoke of death, they often spoke of Erebus, for the journey into shadow was universal. When they greeted dawn, they thanked Hemera, for her light returned without fail. Both were woven into the rhythm of existence. Do you ever notice how much more precious the morning feels after a long, sleepless night? That sweetness of light after darkness is the gift of Hemera. And the heaviness you feel in shadows, the reminder of mortality, is the touch of Erebus. Though Erebus and Hemera were distinct, they remained forever tied to Nyx, their mother. Nyx's cloak of night gave birth to both shadow and daylight. From her came both the darkness that carried souls and the light that awakened mortals. This paradox fascinated the Greeks. That night itself gave birth to day. From shadow came brightness. From stillness came activity. Creation was never simple, never one-sided. Even the purest light carried the memory of darkness. Through Erebus and Hemera, the Greeks expressed their deepest understanding of the world, that life is a cycle. Darkness yields to light, light fades into shadow. Death follows life, and life rises again. No state is permanent, no condition absolute. This was not despair but wisdom, for in knowing that night always comes, one learns to rest. And in knowing that day always follows, one learns to hope. Thus, from chaos, came not only earth and night, but also darkness and day. Erebus, the shadow, and Hemera, the light. Together they shaped the world's rhythm, the daily pulse of existence. They were not gods of thunder or love or war. They were quieter, subtler, but essential. Without them, time could not move. Without them, mortals could not live. Without them, even the gods would have no cycle to rule. When the sun sets tonight and shadows gather, remember Erebus. And when morning comes, with its gentle brightness, remember Hemera. They are still with us, still circling, still balancing the world. For the Greeks, their story was not just myth but truth. Darkness and day were eternal, woven into the fabric of the cosmos, present in every dawn and every dusk. And so, in their cycle, the world endures. Nyx, the eternal night, was more than a presence that cloaked the world. She was also a mother, one of the most fertile beings of the cosmos. Without consort, from her own shadowy essence, she bore children who would shape the destiny of gods and mortals alike. These children were not radiant Olympians with thrones and temples, but primal forces, inescapable truths of existence. Among them were Thanatos, death, Hypnos, sleep, the Moirai, the Fates, and Eris, strife. To the Greeks, it made perfect sense that such powers would come from night. For in the darkness, mortals rest and dream, but also fear and quarrel. In the dark, life ends, destinies unfold, and conflicts brew. Night is both womb and grave, shelter and terror. From her, all these forces were born. Thanatos was the god of death, yet he was not a figure of cruelty. The Greeks saw him as inevitable, gentle, and impartial. When Thanatos came, he closed the eyes of mortals softly, releasing them from toil. He was not the fiery torment of Hades, nor the punishment of Tartarus. He was the silence that follows the last breath. In art, Thanatos was often depicted as a winged youth, carrying a torch turned downward, the flame of life extinguished. He was not to be feared, but respected. For all things mortal and divine must one day bow to him. Have you ever sat by the bedside of someone slipping into death? The stillness, the peace, the sense of final surrender, that was Thanatos. The Greeks believed he came without malice, only with certainty. Thanatos had a twin, Hypnos, sleep. To the Greeks, the closeness of sleep and death was obvious. Both closed the eyes, both took consciousness away, both carried mortals into other realms. But while Thanatos was eternal, Hypnos was merciful. He gave mortals rest each night, only to return them to life each morning. Hypnos dwelled in a cave where no sun or moonlight entered. At its entrance grew poppies, the flowers of sleep. From there, he sent dreams drifting into mortal minds, some sweet, others haunting. His sons, the Oneiroi, were the spirits of dreams, shaping visions in the night. Have you ever wondered why sleep feels like a little death? Why dreams feel like messages from another world? The Greeks answered, because both sleep and death are the children of night. Together, Hypnos and Thanatos revealed the dual face of rest. Sleep is the small death, gentle and temporary. Death is the great sleep, final and eternal. They were twins because one led into the other. Every night, mortals rehearsed death. Every morning, they were reborn. The Greeks saw wisdom in this cycle. To accept Hypnos each night was to learn how to accept Thanatos at the end. In this way, Nyx's children taught mortals how to live with mortality. Among Nyx's most powerful children were the Moirai, the Fates, 3 sisters who spun, measured, and cut the thread of every life. Clotho spun the thread, beginning each life. Lachesis measured it, deciding its length. Atropos cut it, bringing life to its end. No god, not even Zeus, could overrule the Moirai. They were inevitability itself, the certainty that every beginning has an end. To the Greeks, destiny was not chance but woven by these shadow-born sisters. Is it not fitting that they were born of night? For the future is hidden, cloaked in darkness. Only when it unfolds do we see what was always waiting. The Moirai were both feared and honored. Temples rarely depicted them, for their power was too absolute. Yet their presence was everywhere. A baby's cry marked the spinning of a thread. A soldier's fall was the cutting of one. Kings, peasants, and even gods walked under their loom. The Greeks saw themselves not as free from fate, but as part of it. To rebel against destiny was futile. The wiser path was to accept the thread, to live within its measure. Night's daughters did not weave cruelty. They wove truth. Another child of Nyx was Erebus, Strife. Where she walked, harmony fractured. She sowed envy among mortals, rivalry among gods. She whispered quarrels into hearts, sparking disputes that grew into wars. It was Erebus who cast the golden apple at the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, inscribed, "For the fairest." That single act set Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite against one another, leading to the judgment of Paris, and at last to the Trojan War. To the Greeks, strife was inevitable, as much a part of life as love or death. And so they gave it to night, for in the dark, divisions sharpen. Yet Erebus was not wholly evil. From conflict came change. From rivalry came greatness. She was the harsh teacher of growth. Thanatos, Hypnos, the Moirai, and Erebus were only the most famous. Nyx bore many others. Nemesis, the spirit of retribution. Moros, doom itself. Gera's, old age. Phylides, friendship. She was mother to every shadow of existence, both bitter and sweet. This was the Greeks' vision, that from night came not only fear but also comfort, not only strife but also companionship. Night was the womb of opposites. All extremes were her children. Why did the Greeks place so much in Nyx's womb? Perhaps because night feels like the source of everything. In darkness we are born. In darkness we dream. In darkness we die. From the womb's shadow we emerge, and to the grave's shadow we return. Night embraces the beginning and the end. By giving night such children, the Greeks gave poetry to existence itself. Sleep and death, fate and strife. These are not accidents but eternal forces, born of the same mother who cloaks the world each evening. Each of Nyx's children carried a lesson. Thanatos taught acceptance. Hypnos taught renewal. The fates taught humility before destiny. Eris taught that struggle is part of growth. Together, they reminded mortals that life is fragile, uncertain, and yet meaningful. The Greeks did not see these truths as cruel. They saw them as necessary. For to live without sleep is impossible. To live without death is unthinkable. To live without fate is meaningless. To live without strife is stagnant. Night gave balance by birthing them all. Even the Olympians respected Nyx's children. Zeus himself avoided conflict with them, for to defy death, fate, or strife was folly. If Nyx was feared by gods, then so too were her offspring. They were the threads of reality, older than thrones, stronger than crowns. This reveals something profound in Greek thought, that even the mightiest gods lived within a framework they did not control. Death came for all. Fate bound all. Night's children were the silent rulers behind every story. Thus, Nyx's brood spread across the world. In every death, in every dream, in every destiny fulfilled, in every quarrel begun. They were not worshipped with temples, for they needed no altars. They were experienced every day, in every life. When you fall asleep, remember Hypnos. When you awaken to grief, remember Thanatos. When you wonder about your future, remember the fates. When discord shakes your life, remember Eris. They are still with us, still whispering in the shadows, still guiding existence. From night they were born, and into night they will always return. Gaia, the great earth, had risen from chaos as the first solid presence of creation. She was vast, fertile, and eternal. Mountains rose from her ribs, valleys sank into her folds, rivers traced her veins. She was the nourishing mother, the foundation of all that was. And yet Gaia was alone. She stretched endlessly, but no one stretched back. She bore the weight of silence, unbroken and unshared. Her vast plains reached outward, but there was no partner to crown them, no balance to meet her breadth. The earth was full, but it was lonely. The Greeks imagined Gaia not only as a body but as a soul. Within her stirred the deep longing of all creation, the need for companionship. What is form without reflection? What is life without balance? In her solitude, Gaia felt the ache of incompleteness. She desired something to rise above her, something to cover her, to embrace her vastness. Out of her yearning, a vision took shape. She called for a counterpart, a presence as great as her own. Have you ever stood beneath the sky at night, feeling how it shelters the earth? That is Gaia's longing answered. From Gaia herself came Uranus, the sky. She bore him without consort, raising him from her depths to stretch above her. Uranus arched across the world, vast and glittering, crowned with the promise of stars. Together, earth and sky became the first true pair, the first cosmic balance. Gaia was the body, the ground. Uranus was the crown, the dome. She carried life and he sheltered it. Their union was not fleeting but eternal. Every horizon their bond, every dawn their embrace. The Greeks called their union a marriage, the first sacred joining. Gaia lay beneath, fertile and steady, while Uranus covered her with his expanse. From this union would come countless children, the Titans, the Cyclopes, the hundred-handed ones. But in this first moment, before conflict, their marriage was harmony. Earth had found her partner. Sky had found his resting place. Together they shaped the cosmos into a home. To the Greeks, the pairing of Gaia and Uranus explained the structure of the world. Earth below, sky above, the simplest, most eternal truth. Without earth, there is no place to stand. Without sky, There is no shelter, no stars, no rhythm of day and night. This duality echoed in human life. Every marriage, every partnership, every balance of opposites reflected Gaia and Uranus. The Greeks looked upward and downward and saw their story written across creation. From their union, Gaia and Uranus bore children of immense power. The Titans, 12 mighty beings, embodied strength, time, and natural forces. The Cyclopes, one-eyed giants, carried the fire of craftsmanship. The Centimanes, the hundred-handed ones, embodied sheer chaos and might. Gaia carried them all within her, groaning beneath their weight. Her fertility was boundless, but so too was her burden. Creation brings joy, but also strain. Though Uranus was Gaia's partner, he soon grew harsh. He looked upon some of their children with fear, especially the monstrous Centimanes. Instead of embracing them, he cast them deep into Gaia's body, imprisoning them within her womb. Gaia, who had longed for companionship, now suffered under the weight of children hidden away. Her joy turned to pain, her harmony to bitterness. She began to resent Uranus, who had turned from partner to oppressor. The Greeks knew that creation is not always gentle. To bring forth life is to bear pain, to carry weight, to endure struggle. Gaia embodied this truth. Her longing had brought sky, and together they had borne children. But that same act brought sorrow, for her children were denied the light. She groaned under their weight, a mother burdened, a goddess wounded. Creation is always double-edged. Joy and sorrow, love and pain. From Gaia's suffering, a new force began to grow. Resistance. She plotted in silence, nursing anger against Uranus. In time, she would rise against him through her son Cronus. But even in her rebellion, she remained the eternal mother, fighting not for herself alone, but for her children. The Greeks saw in this tale the cycle of all power: companionship, harmony, then conflict. Even the gods could not escape it. From longing came union, from union came children, from children came strife. Why did the Greeks imagine Gaia's loneliness so vividly? Perhaps because they knew it in themselves. No field is complete without sky. No life is complete without companionship. They understood that even the earth, vast and fertile, could feel incomplete without something to crown her. This story is not only about gods, but about human truth. Loneliness seeks union. Union bears fruit. Fruit bears conflict. And the cycle repeats. Despite their strife, Gaia and Uranus remained the eternal pair in myth. Every horizon, every dawn, every starlit night recalled their first union. The Greeks did not separate them entirely, for earth and sky are always joined. Their marriage, troubled as it became, was the foundation of all that followed. When you look at the ground beneath you and the sky above you, you are looking at the first lovers, the first companions, the first parents of creation. Despite their strife, Gaia and Uranus remained the eternal pair in myth. Every horizon, every dawn, every starlit night recalled their first union. The Greeks did not separate them entirely, for earth and sky are always joined. Their marriage, troubled as it became, was the foundation of all that followed. When you look at the ground beneath you and the sky above you, you are looking at the first lovers, the first companions, the first parents of creation. When Gaia, the vast earth, stretched herself wide and fertile, her longing summoned a counterpart. From her depths arose Uranus, the sky. He rose not as a small figure, but as a dome of endless expanse, arching high above her, glittering with the promise of stars. Uranus crowned Gaia, and together they formed the first true horizon. Earth below, sky above. For the first time, the cosmos had structure, ground to walk upon, heavens to look toward. Uranus was the embodiment of the heavens. His name meant sky, and the Greeks imagined him as the great vault that held the stars, the clouds, the winds. He was limitless, ever-present, impossible to escape. Unlike later gods, Uranus had no human form in early myth. He was not imagined as a figure with hands and face, but as the sky itself. His presence was overwhelming, and his embrace unavoidable. Wherever Gaia stretched, Uranus stretched above her. The joining of Gaia and Uranus was the first sacred marriage. Earth lay beneath, fertile and steady, while sky lay above, sheltering and covering. Their union explained the most basic truth of the world, that earth and sky are never apart. The Greeks called this hieros gamos, the holy marriage of opposites. In their embrace, creation was possible. From it came children, from it came conflict, from it came all that followed. Have you ever stood in a wide plain, the sky stretched endlessly above? That moment is the marriage of Gaia and Uranus, still present in every horizon. From their union came the first great beings, the Titans, the Cyclopes, and the Centimanes. These children were vast, powerful, and strange, embodying the raw energy of creation. The Titans were 12 mighty beings, destined to rule before the Olympians. The Cyclopes, one-eyed giants, carried the fire of craftsmanship and lightning. The Centimanes, monstrous with 100 hands, embodied chaos and power untamed. Gaia bore them all, her body full of life, her soul heavy with responsibility. Yet Uranus, though Gaia's partner, grew harsh. He looked upon some of his children with fear and disgust. The Centimanes, with their countless arms, terrified him. The Cyclopes, with their single blazing eye, unsettled him. Instead of embracing them, Uranus forced them back into Gaia's womb, burying them deep within her. He sought to hide them from the light, to deny their place in creation. This act turned the marriage bitter. Gaia, who had longed for companionship, now groaned under the weight of imprisoned children. Her partner, who should have been her comfort, became her tormentor. The poets tell us Gaia cried out in pain. Her body swelled with the weight of children trapped inside. Her heart ached with the injustice of their confinement. Creation, once a joy, became a burden. She longed to see her children free, to let them walk the earth and claim their place. But Uranus denied her. His fear had become tyranny, and so Gaia's love turned to resentment. From her anguish, Gaia's resolve hardened. She began to plot against Uranus. Though she was the earth itself, she knew she could not rise against the sky alone. She turned to her children for help, whispering rebellion into their ears. It would be her son Cronus, the youngest Titan, who answered. With his mother's guidance, he would one day strike Uranus down. But in this moment, the seeds were only being sown. Uranus's crown was heavy, and the ground beneath him was restless. Yet for all his cruelty, Uranus remained majestic. He was the starlit dome, the canopy of clouds, the bringer of storms. He was not merely a tyrant, but a force of nature. The Greeks revered him as the heavens themselves, the source of weather, the measure of time. At night, when stars shone, mortals looked upon Uranus. At dawn, when light filled the sky, it was his body they beheld. His presence was inescapable, his power undeniable. The story of Uranus revealed a pattern the Greeks saw repeated in every generation of gods. Power breeds fear, fear breeds cruelty, cruelty breeds rebellion. Just as Uranus oppressed his children, he would be overthrown by them. Just as Cronus devoured his own offspring, he too would be cast down by Zeus. The cycle of creation and rebellion was eternal, echoing from Earth to Olympus. The union of Gaia and Uranus also shaped how the Greeks saw their own world. Farmers tilled Gaia's soil beneath Uranus's weather. Sailors looked to the sky to guide their journeys, even as the earth grounded them. Lovers lay on the ground beneath the stars, embodying the marriage of earth and sky. Their myth was not distant. It was written in every furrow, every storm, every horizon. The Greeks did not just tell the story of Gaia and Uranus. They lived within it. Uranus also became an archetype. The distant father, powerful but fearful, vast but cold. He was the unreachable sky, the authority that smothers, the ruler who cannot trust his heirs. Many later myths echoed this archetype, repeating the pattern of fathers and sons locked in cycles of fear and overthrow. In this way, Uranus was more than a primordial figure. He was a mirror of human truth. Power is never secure, and fear of loss often ensures rebellion. Thus, Uranus crowned Gaia, and the world had its first structure. earth below, sky above. From their union came children, from their children came destiny. Yet Uranus, who seemed eternal, had already sown the seeds of his downfall. For Gaia's longing had birthed him, but her anguish would one day end him. The story of Uranus is not only of majesty but of decline. The sky may crown the earth, but the earth endures longer. From the union of Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, came the first true family of gods. They were vast and powerful, embodying forces of nature itself. Unlike mortals, their lives were endless, and their roles eternal. This family, though divine, carried all the struggles of human families: love, jealousy, fear, and rebellion. The firstborn were the Titans, majestic and mighty. Then came the Cyclopes, fierce one-eyed giants. And finally, the Centimanes, monstrous beings with 100 hands and 50 heads. Together they formed the first generation of gods, the foundation of myth, the ancestors of Olympians. The Titans were the eldest children of Gaia and Uranus, 12 in number. 6 were male: Oceanus, Ceus, Crius, Hyperion, Iapetus, and Cronus. 6 were female: Thea, Rhea, Themis, Mnemosyne, Phoebe, and Tethys. Each Titan embodied an aspect of the cosmos. Oceanus was the endless river that encircled the world. A Hyperion represented light and the heavenly bodies. Themis was law and order. Mnemosyne embodied memory. Rhea, the mother of gods, would one day birth the Olympians. Cronus, the youngest, was cunning, ambitious, and destined to overthrow his father. The Titans were not simply gods. They were personifications of reality, each tied to a truth the Greeks saw in the world around them. For the Greeks, the sea was not infinite chaos but contained by Oceanus, the Titan. He was imagined as a great river that encircled the entire earth, beyond which lay mystery and shadow. Oceanus was not violent but patient, a father of countless river gods and nymphs. He represented both abundance and boundaries, the water that nourished life and the edge of the known world. To sailors, Oceanus was both a protector and a warning. Among the Titans, Hyperion and his consort Thea represented the brilliance of heaven. From them came Helios, the sun, Selene, the moon, and Eos, the dawn. Through this family, the Greeks explained the daily rhythm of light. To see the sun rise, to watch the moon glow, to greet the dawn. All of these were gifts of Hyperion's line. His name itself meant the High One, shining with celestial majesty. 2 Titanesses embodied the foundations of human culture. Mnemosyne, goddess of memory, preserved stories, traditions, and history. Without her, nothing could be remembered, nothing learned. From her union with Zeus, the Muses would be born, inspiring poets and artists. Themis, goddess of law, represented order and justice. She guided the assembly of gods, the laws of hospitality, and the balance of the cosmos. In her presence, chaos was restrained by principle. These Titanesses showed that creation was not only physical but also mental and moral. Memory and law were as divine as the sun and sea. Among all the Titans, one loomed largest in myth: Cronus, the youngest. He was clever, ambitious, and sharp of mind. Gaia would one day turn to him to overthrow Uranus, arming him with a sickle of flint. Cronus's story is one of rebellion and tyranny, for he would rise against his father only to repeat his cruelty. Yet in this first family, his role was still forming. A shadow on the horizon, a promise of upheaval. The second group of children were the Cyclopes, Brontes, Thunder, Steripes, Lightning, and Argesh, Bright. Fierce and strong, they each had a single blazing eye in the center of their foreheads. Though monstrous in appearance, they were master craftsmen. From their hands would come Zeus's thunderbolt, Poseidon's trident, and Hades' helm of invisibility. The Cyclopes represented raw elemental power: fire, lightning, storm. Yet Uranus feared them. Their brilliance and might unsettled him, and so he cast them back into Gaia, imprisoning them in her depths. The final children were the most terrifying: the Centimanes, Cottus, Briareus, and Gyges. Each had 50 heads and 100 hands, their strength beyond comprehension. They were embodiments of sheer chaos, raw power without restraint. Uranus despised them most of all. He bound them deep within Gaia, where their writhing brought her agony. Their cries echoed in her body, shaking mountains and splitting earth. Gaia, once joyful in her fertility, grew bitter with pain. Why did Uranus imprison his children? The Greeks explained it simply: fear. He feared their power, their strangeness, their potential to overthrow him. In his fear, he tried to prevent change, to keep creation bound within the earth. But by doing so, he planted the seeds of rebellion. For Gaia, suffering under the weight of her imprisoned children, turned against him. And the children themselves, restless and angry, longed for freedom. Gaia groaned with pain and fury. She had borne children not for them to be hidden away, but to see them thrive. She began to hate Uranus, who once had been her answer to loneliness, but had become her oppressor. Her anger stirred the Titans, and she whispered rebellion into their hearts. Of all her children, only Cronus had the courage to act. The first cosmic family, once bound by love, was now torn by conflict. The Greeks saw in this myth the reflection of every family: joy and sorrow, harmony and strife, love and betrayal. Parents and children, bound together, yet divided by fear and ambition. The family of Gaia and Uranus was not perfect. It was the first mirror of human struggle, magnified on a cosmic scale. Through their myths, the Greeks acknowledged a truth. Even the gods argued, suffered, and rebelled. Even the first family was marked by conflict. The children of Gaia and Uranus would shape all that followed. The Titans would rule before the Olympians. The Cyclopes would forge the weapons of the gods. The hundred-handed ones would shake the world in battle. From their strife would come the Titanomachy, the great war that crowned Zeus. Thus, the first cosmic family was not only the beginning of life, but also the beginning of conflict, destiny, and power. Their story was the foundation of Greek myth itself. Even now, when we look at the sea, the stars, the laws of justice, or the thread of memory, we see their legacy. The family of earth and sky still lives within the world. Among the primordial forces, none were more constant than Nyx, the night, and her daughter Hemera, the day. Their relationship was unlike any other in myth. They never stood side by side, never shared a moment together. Instead, they passed one another in silence, each taking her turn to rule the world. Night gave way to day. Day yielded to night. Their cycle was endless, the heartbeat of the cosmos. The poets told of a dwelling where Nyx and Hemera lived. It was a shadowy home at the edge of the world. Each dawn, Hemera would step out as Nyx returned, and each dusk, Nyx would emerge as Hemera withdrew. The two never met within the house. It was as if the cosmos itself demanded their separation. For light and darkness cannot exist together. When Hemera emerged, she brought clarity. The shadows fled, shapes sharpened, colors returned. Farmers rose to work the fields, merchants opened their stalls, sailors set their sails. Hemera's light made the world livable. She was not the sun itself, but the daylight in which mortals thrived. Without her, there would be no activity, no growth, no progress. Hemera was renewal, the daily gift that reassured mortals the world was still in order. When Nyx returned, she wrapped the world in her veil. Yet her gift was not only fear but also peace. Night brought rest after toil, dreams after labor, quiet after noise. Beneath her cloak, mortals found both dread and comfort. She was mystery itself, the silence in which sleep, love, and death all dwell. Without her, the mind would never dream, and the soul would never learn humility. The passing of Nyx and Hemera was not a battle but a dance. Each gave way willingly to the other. Hemera did not resist when dusk arrived, and Nyx did not cling to power at dawn. Their cycle was harmonious, a perfect sharing of time. The Greeks saw in this dance the natural law of balance, opposites yielding, not destroying. Night made day precious, and day gave night meaning. Together, Nyx and Hemera marked the passage of time. Their alternation measured days, weeks, seasons, and years. Without them, the cosmos would be stagnant. With them, time flowed. To mortals, their cycle was reassurance. No matter how long the night, morning would come. No matter how bright the day, night would return. Life was change, but change was constant. The Greeks wove their daily experience into myth. To wake each morning was to greet Hemera. To lie down each evening was to surrender to Nyx. Every life was shaped by their rhythm. Even now, we feel it. The relief of dawn after a sleepless night. The comfort of night after a long day. We live within the embrace of these goddesses, even if we do not call their names. Through Nyx and Hemera, the Greeks expressed wisdom about life. Joy and sorrow alternate. Labor and rest alternate. Hope and despair alternate. Just as night yields to day, so too do all things come and go. The cycle teaches humility. No triumph lasts forever. No suffering is eternal. To accept the rhythm is to live wisely. Night, in her reign, also gave dreams. Some were sweet, others frightening. Some carried prophecies, others carried fears. Dreams were messages from the unseen, slipping into mortal minds under Nyx's cloak. Daylight revealed the visible, but night revealed the hidden. Without Nyx, there would be no visions, no imagination, no prophecy. Without Hemera, there would be no clarity, no action, no fulfillment. Other peoples told similar stories. The Hindus spoke of Ratri, night, and Ushas, dawn, as sisters who alternated in power. The Egyptians saw the sun swallowed by the sky goddess each evening and reborn each morning. The Norse imagined wolves chasing the sun and moon, ensuring their endless cycle. The Greeks gave these truths names: Nyx and Hemera. Their alternation was not chaos but law, the deepest rhythm of existence. The Greeks believed this cycle echoed in human lives. Childhood was dawn, youth was day, old age was twilight, and death was night. Yet from death came rebirth, just as from night came day. To live was to move in cycles, small and great, daily and eternal. The cosmos itself was a pattern of Nyx and Hemera written into every soul. Thus, the balance of day and night was established. Neither destroyed the other, neither claimed eternal victory. They were mother and daughter, rivals and partners, forever entwined. Every dawn and every dusk was a reminder of their story. When light fades, Nyx returns. When shadows lift, Hemera steps forward. Their eternal rhythm keeps the world alive. And so the Greeks looked at every sunrise, every sunset, and saw not just light and dark, but the heartbeat of the universe, the eternal balance of day and night. To the Greeks, darkness was not merely the lack of light. It was a force, a presence, a power in its own right. From chaos came Nyx, night, and from her came Erebus, the deep shadow. Darkness was fertile, creative, and eternal. Without it, the cosmos could not exist. Even today, we speak of darkness as though it has weight. The heavy night, the thick shadow, the deep gloom. The Greeks gave these qualities form, making them gods and goddesses, not voids. In myth, creation does not begin with light but with darkness. Chaos itself was shadowy, unformed, and deep. Out of that formless darkness, the first powers emerged. Night gave birth to day. Darkness made light possible. It is a paradox the Greeks understood, that without shadow, brilliance has no meaning. Just as silence makes music sweeter, so darkness makes light more precious. The cosmos was not born in clarity, but in obscurity. Erebus embodied the kind of darkness that cannot be dispelled by a torch. He was the gloom of caves, the stillness of underworld paths, the obscurity between life and death. His name was invoked in oaths, for to swear by Erebus was to call upon the truth hidden in shadows. To the Greeks, this darkness was not emptiness but honesty, the unavoidable truth that all light fades and all lives end. Have you ever stepped into a cave and felt the air grow thicker, the silence heavier? That was Erebus. His presence reminded mortals that some truths can only be faced in shadow. Nyx, the night, was the mother of many powers: sleep, death, fate, strife. In her cloak, The Greeks saw that shadows carry life as much as they carry endings. Night brought dreams, comfort, and renewal. She was feared, but she was also beloved. The Greeks did not see Nyx as evil. Instead, they gave her the deepest reverence. For even Zeus, the king of Olympus, hesitated to challenge her. Darkness was stronger than thunder. Darkness awakens fear. By day, shapes are clear. By night, shadows blur, and imagination fills the void. To the Greeks, this fear was not weakness but wisdom. Fear kept mortals cautious, alert, and humble. Erebus, Strife, born of Nyx, thrived in shadow, whispering quarrels in the dark. Thanatos, death, waited in the night's silence. The Greeks saw fear not as punishment, but as part of existence, a reminder of fragility. Yet darkness also gave peace. Sleep, the gift of Hypnos, was Nyx's child. Without shadow, there could be no rest, no renewal, no dreams. The Greeks saw night as both a terror and a blessing, the time when mortals lay down burdens and drifted into silence. Every evening, Nyx descended, and the world sighed with relief. Darkness carried not only dread, but also healing. From shadow came visions. In darkness, mortals dreamed, sometimes of joy, sometimes of dread, sometimes of prophecy. The Greeks believed dreams were sent by the Oneiroi, children of Nyx, carrying truths from the unseen. Light revealed the visible. Darkness revealed the invisible. Without night, there would be no prophecy, no imagination, no story. Darkness was not only fertile, it was visionary. The Greeks placed shadow and light in constant balance. Hemera, the day, banished Nyx each morning, but Nyx returned each evening without fail. Neither destroyed the other. Each gave meaning to the other. The Greeks did not imagine a world of eternal light. They knew such a world would blind and burn. They did not long for endless night, for that would suffocate and freeze. Only in balance did life exist. Greek ritual often embraced darkness. Many mysteries, especially the Eleusinian rites of Demeter and Persephone, began in shadow. Participants entered caves or darkened halls, facing silence before revelation. This reflected the truth that knowledge is born from obscurity. Just as seeds sprout in the dark soil, so wisdom sprouts in the dark mind. Darkness was the beginning of transformation. The Greeks were not alone in honoring shadow. The Egyptians imagined creation arising from the dark waters of Nun. The Babylonians spoke of Tiamat, the shadowy sea. The Norse described Ginnungagap, the great void. Every culture recognized darkness not only as absence, but as origin. To tell of beginnings was to tell of shadow. The Greeks also knew that darkness was not only outside but within. The human heart carried shadows, fears, desires, memories, griefs. To face oneself was to face Nyx's children. In tragedies, heroes often wrestled not with enemies, but with their own inner darkness, pride, anger, sorrow. The Greeks believed that just as night followed day, shadow followed every soul. Thus, darkness in Greek myth was not weakness but power. From shadow came gods, dreams, fates, and laws. From shadow came fear but also rest. From shadow came prophecy but also death. The Greeks revered light, but they respected shadow just as deeply. For without shadow, there could be no creation, no story, no life. When night falls, remember this: darkness is not an enemy, but a partner. It is the womb of beginnings, the veil of endings, the mystery that makes the cosmos whole. The cosmos was no longer silent. Earth had risen, crowned by sky. Night and day circled in eternal rhythm. From Gaia and Uranus came children, titans, cyclopes, hundred-handed ones. The first cosmic family was vast and growing. But creation does not rest. With every birth came new tension. With every force came its opposite. The world was alive, and life meant struggle. The Greeks saw conflict not as failure but as part of existence itself. Uranus, though vast and majestic, was afraid. His children were powerful, strange, and uncontrollable. The Titans were mighty, but the Cyclopes burned with fire, and the Centimanes shook the ground with their monstrous strength. Fear twisted the sky. Instead of pride in his offspring, he felt dread. He saw in them not family but threats, and so he acted not as a father but as a jailer. Uranus forced the Cyclopes and the hundred-handed ones back into Gaia's depths. He pressed them into the womb of Earth, burying them beneath mountains and soil. Their cries echoed within Gaia, shaking her body, tormenting her soul. Gaia, who had longed for companionship, who had borne children with love, now groaned in pain. Her own partner had turned her into a prison. The poets say Gaia groaned aloud, her voice rising from valleys and caves. She was swollen with children denied the light, burdened with cries that never ceased. Her heart burned with sorrow, and her anger grew. She looked upon Uranus with bitterness. Once her partner, now her tormentor, he had betrayed her trust. She began to whisper to her children of rebellion, planting seeds of vengeance. The Titans, though mighty, hesitated. They heard their mother's cries, but they feared their father's vastness. Uranus was the dome of the heavens, the power of storms, the endless vault above. To defy him was to defy the sky itself. And so they waited in silence, all but one. Cronus, the youngest Titan, sharp of mind and ambitious of spirit, stepped forward. He did not fear Uranus as his siblings did. Perhaps because he was youngest, he carried the recklessness of youth. Perhaps because he was clever, he saw a chance where others saw only danger. Gaia armed him with a sickle of flint, sharp and unyielding. In his hands, the seeds of rebellion became a weapon. Together, Gaia and Cronus conspired. They would strike Uranus when he lay with Gaia, covering her in his embrace. Cronus would wield the sickle, and with it, he would wound his father. The plan was daring, even unthinkable. To rise against the sky himself seemed impossible. Yet in Greek myth, impossibility often yields to destiny. The time had come for the first overthrow. Why did the Greeks imagine such a story? Perhaps because they knew that power, once gained, is rarely gentle. Parents fear their children's strength, rulers fear their heirs. Fear breeds cruelty, and cruelty breeds rebellion. The cycle is eternal. Uranus's tyranny was not random. It was born of fear that the future would rise against him. And in acting on that fear, he ensured exactly what he dreaded. Deep within Gaia, the Cyclopes and the Centimanes groaned. Their cries were thunder in the earth, quakes in the mountains, storms in the sea. Their suffering was unbearable, and Gaia felt every moment. Their pain became her anger. Their torment became her resolve. A mother does not forget her children. A goddess does not forgive betrayal. In this myth, the Greeks saw truth. Conflict is born not only of hatred, but of fear, pain, and betrayal. Love turns to resentment when trust is broken. Families fracture when power is abused. The story of Uranus and Gaia was not only cosmic but human. Every household knew quarrels. Every generation saw tension between parents and children. The gods themselves were mirrors of mortal life. As Gaia and Cronus plotted, the world held its breath. The heavens still arched above, but within the earth, rebellion stirred. A new order was waiting, hidden in shadow. The Greeks knew that no reign lasts forever. Just as day yields to night, and night to day, so too do rulers yield to their successors. Uranus's time was ending, though he did not yet know it. Thus, the seeds of conflict were sown. Uranus, the sky, had crowned the earth, but his fear poisoned the union. Gaia, once longing for companionship, now longed for justice. Cronus, youngest of the Titans, prepared to strike. The cosmos trembled, not with silence but with tension. The first rebellion was coming. The first dynasty would fall. And in that fall, the pattern of gods was set. Power, fear, rebellion, renewal. The cycle would repeat from Uranus to Cronus, from Cronus to Zeus, forever echoing through myth. Uranus, the sky, still pressed himself upon Gaia, the earth. His presence was endless, heavy, and unyielding. Each night he covered her, and each night Gaia groaned beneath both his weight and the cries of the children he had forced back into her depths. The Titans watched in silence. The Cyclopes writhed in shadow. The hundred-handed ones strained against their prison. The cosmos was full, but harmony was gone. Gaia's sorrow had hardened into fury. She was mother, not jailer. Her children deserved the light, the stars, the world. She would no longer suffer Uranus's cruelty. She shaped a weapon from flint, sharp, jagged, unbreakable. This sickle was no mere tool. It was the first blade, the first act of defiance. With it, she armed her son Cronus, the only Titan bold enough to stand against his father. Cronus was young, cunning, and ambitious. He looked at Uranus not with fear but with calculation. Where his brothers hesitated, he saw opportunity. Where his sisters wept, he prepared for action. He took the sickle from Gaia, its edge gleaming in the shadows. He swore to his mother he would free her, free his siblings, and strike down the sky. Have you ever noticed that it is often the youngest who dares to challenge what the older ones accept? Cronus was that spirit reckless enough to change the world. The plan was simple but daring. When Uranus descended once more to lie upon Gaia, Cronus would strike. No god had ever been wounded before. No force had ever dared to challenge the heavens. The Titans waited in silence, hearts pounding with dread. The Cyclopes and hundred-handed ones strained in their prisons, their cries echoing. Gaia herself trembled with both fear and hope. Uranus descended, as he always did, blanketing Gaia with his endless vault. He was vast, majestic, oblivious to the trap. Then, in the stillness, Cronus stepped forward. With a swift motion, he raised the sickle. The blade cut through the sky's flesh, severing the bond between Uranus and Gaia. Blood rained upon the earth, seeding it with power. The first rebellion had begun. The Greeks believed that from the blood of Uranus came new beings. The Erinyes, Furies, spirits of vengeance, the giants, fierce warriors, and the mealy nymphs of ash trees. From his severed seed cast into the sea, the goddess Aphrodite would one day rise. Thus, even in his fall, Uranus gave birth to forces that would shape the world. Creation came not only from harmony, but also from violence. Uranus roared, his voice thundering across the heavens. The stars shuddered, the earth quaked, but his power was broken. Cronus had struck, and Gaia was free from his oppressive weight. The sky did not vanish, he still arched above. But his reign as ruler, as tyrant, was ended. The first dynasty of gods had fallen. Cronus, youngest of the Titans, now took his father's place. He freed his siblings, raised his head high, and claimed the throne of the cosmos. The Titans hailed him as leader. Gaia, though burdened by sorrow at the violence, looked upon him with pride. A new age had begun, the age of the Titans. Yet even in victory, a shadow fell over Cronus. For Uranus, though overthrown, spoke a prophecy. As I have fallen by my son, so too shall you fall by yours. The words echoed in Cronus's heart. Fear, once his father's flaw, now became his own. The cycle was set. Power would always be overthrown by its heir. The Greeks saw in this tale the eternal pattern. Fathers overthrown by sons, rulers replaced by heirs, power never secure. Uranus fell to Cronus, Cronus would fall to Zeus, and even Zeus would one day fear his own succession. This was no accident, but destiny. The cosmos was not static. It was always moving, always changing, always renewing itself through conflict. The story of Uranus's fall carried many lessons. That tyranny breeds rebellion, that fear ensures downfall, that even the mightiest are not eternal. The Greeks wove these lessons into their lives. Kings, fathers, rulers, all knew they too could fall, just as the sky had fallen. Power was not permanent. Authority was not absolute. The cosmos itself testified to this truth. With Uranus cast down, the world entered a new order. Cronus ruled with the Titans at his side. The Cyclopes and hundred-handed ones still lingered in shadow, but their time would come. Gaia, relieved of her torment, stood firm once more. Yet the wound of rebellion never fully healed. The blood of Uranus had given rise to new powers, new destinies. Cronus carried the prophecy of his own fall. The first cosmic overthrow was complete, but the story of strife and renewal had only just begun. And so, we have walked together through the earliest dawn of creation, from the silence of chaos to the awakening of Gaia, the mystery of Nyx, the balance of Erebus and Hemera, the vast crown of Uranus, and the restless birth of the first cosmic family. These forces were not merely gods, but truths, earth and sky, night and day, shadow and light, love and strife. Out of their union came both harmony and tension, both beauty and conflict. The seeds of rebellion have been sown, and the first dynasty of the cosmos is already trembling beneath its own weight. But that is the way of myth. Nothing stays still, for even the heavens change. If you've enjoyed this journey through the primordial forces of Greek mythology, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, Whispered Empires, so you can drift with us deeper into these timeless stories. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you had lived in that first age, which of the primordial powers would you have found most awe-inspiring? Chaos, Gaia, or Nyx? Leave your answer in the comments below, and let us know which force speaks to you most. Until next time, may the silence of chaos, the embrace of Gaia, and the cloak of Nyx guide your dreams tonight.